My fellow Ambazonians, my fellow soldiers of the Ambazonian Revolution, Happy New Year to every citizen of Ambazonia and to everyone who in the year 2019 believed in us, fought for us and sacrificed for us. Today, I will be having an extensive discussion on the state of our war of independence, how far we have come, and what is left undone. It's not going to be a speech. It's going to be an interactive discussion that should be able to be informative, educative, and clarifying a lot of issues that our people have raised in the past 1 year and in the past days. I want to honor each and every one of you who have sacrificed their lives, their time, and their resources, invested it for the liberation of our country. I want to thank our soldiers on the ground. I want to encourage them to remain steadfast. I want to also thank our parents, our mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, all those who on every Monday have continuously observed our call for ghost towns as a mark of their own contribution to our overall strategy for the liberation of our country. Fellow countrymen and women, the state of our war of independence is good. We have made positive strides. In the last 3 years alone, we have been able to move our struggle from the domestic to the international realm. We have been able to undermine Cameroon's ability to govern us from inside. We have reduced to a significant level the level of exploitation of our resources in supporting the terrorist regime that has held us in bondage for the past 58 years. There are bombs, as they would always exist, in a war of independence as complicated as ours. But I want Ambazonians to be positive, and I want all of you to understand that the enemy is determined to keep you in servitude because it has benefited them keeping you in servitude. The enemy is determined to continue to write your history, to tell your story, and to represent your interests in the international system. So they are much more determined than you will expect because their survival depends on Ambazonia. But Ambazonia is ours. That's our birthplace. It is ours to protect. It is ours to exploit its riches and use in the development of the capacity and capabilities of our people. I want to take this opportunity to remember a lot of persons. I'll have my glasses and I'll do some reading so you can understand. The first person who died in our revolution was Akum Julius. You also had Mami Api, who was murdered in cold blood using helicopter gunship. You had Sam Soya, who was decapitated. Some of those who were killed in action, like General Ivo, Von Desmond, Bertman, Rudolph, Nebania, Genesis, The Rock. You have Red Cat, Blinky, Obi, River, Safeguard, Killer, Smalley. Those are all people who gave their lives so that Ambazonia shall yet be free. I would like to remind you that the oldest Ambazonian prisoner has been in jail since 1997. He was arrested in 1997 in Kumbo, deported to Cameroon, and was sentenced in 1999 to 25 years in jail. That is Lukong Hassan Njumbam. He is still being detained at the Bamenda Central Prison. We also remember our detainees who were captured in 2015 before the uprising ever began. That's Nomvi Walters and Clovis. They've all been sentenced to 15 years in jail. I want you not to forget. I know we always talk about fighting for independence. We're talking about fighting for an abstract political configuration that should then give us all the things that we want. Freedom of expression, freedom of thought, freedom of association, freedom of assembly, the right to the pursuit of happiness, the right to personal development. But we should know that many of our compatriots are in jail across the territory, locked up within Cameroon. I would like to read the names of some of them. I do this so you never forget. You never forget. So each time you are depressed because there are some bombs along the way, or perceived bombs, remember that there are people whose liberty has been taken away from them because of their desire to let Ambazonia free. Let us remember those who were kidnapped from Calabar, betrayed by some of us. You have Ayompe Moses, Atone Ezekiel, Owan Betran, Benjamin Tembang, Cedric Mbo, Njindang Nelson, Etue Henry, and Nkwo Beltus. Before these men were the foundation of our self-defense. They were the finest breed of men who inspired millions of other Ambazonians to believe in their own capability to defend themselves, defend their bloc, and believe in their ability to challenge the invincibility of the BR regime. You know, for over 57 years, we have been made to believe that Cameroon was invincible, unbeatable. Men who were untrained, the Benjis and the others, rose up on the same spot that the Ngumjuas were assassinated to challenge and shatter that invincibility of the Cameroon military, to bring them on their knees, and to also give Cameroonian families a taste of the mourning that we have experienced for the past 57 years. Before these men were kidnapped, we had more than 47 of our compatriots who were also kidnapped and from Taraba State. I remember a couple of them. You have Damien Mbongen, Tita Tabit, Elvis Fonyu, Sike Mulligan, Amos Rita. These were men who left their homes, went across the border in search of sanctuary, with the hope that what inspired our fathers more than 6 decades ago to walk out of the Eastern House of Nigeria, to set up their headquarters in Boya, build a parliamentary democracy with an executive arm led by the Prime Minister, a powerful legislature where they debated each other, sought compromises, organized one of the first free and fair elections within the continent, where there was a transition from a sitting Prime Minister to an opposition leader. These men walked across the border with the hope that they will return back to their homeland to build a free country, One of the most important cases which we should never forget are those who were kidnapped from Nera. I know if I ask you to give their names, it might be difficult. I want to remember each of them. Our leaders who were kidnapped from Nera Hotel. You have Dr. Kimeng Henry, Barrister Shufai Bless, Fidelis Nde Nche, Pa Mfongalamfo, Deacon Tasang Wilfred, Barrister Eyambe Elias, Siseko Julius Ayok Tabe, and Dr. Awasu. Fellow Ambazonians, we should never forget, even when we are low in spirit, even when we feel betrayed by those we thought were with us, we should always remember that these people gave their liberty so that Ambazonia should be independent, sovereign, free, with the powers to legislate and with the powers to build an executive that oversees our country. Be reminded that before all of these men that I have called their names were ever taken into custody, some other brave men rose up from our street, took their coffins on the street, and asked Cameroon to leave our land, give us freedom, or give us death. Let us recall Ngalim Felix, Chi Conrad, Pen Terence, Ta Emil, Tamgwa Malvin, Kimga Valentine, Asela Martin, Mancho BBC. These are brave patriots. These are brave men, warriors, who fought on our streets. They fought battles on our street in our name, so that Ambazonia should be free. They fought like valiant soldiers. We also remember a block that was picked up from Buea and deported to Yaoundé. You have Pangwa, George Tang, Supol, Tatingu, Ayin Jim Austin, Bertrand Shea, and Abanda. My fellow countrymen and women, this is not the full list of our warriors. But each time I come to speak to you, I'll remind you of those who are detained. I'll read their names so you never forget. There is a case that I would like to talk to you about. I wouldn't call the name of the comrade. He was arrested in Buea. He was surrendered by the military of Cameroon using an unmarked car. They chased him along the streets of Buea, threatening to execute him. He was captured. He was tortured, beaten with the butts of the gun. He bled for a couple of hours. He began to drink his own blood and was choking as he was suffering, as he was going through the ordeal and pain. His tormentors were praying for his death. He woke up in hospital, not sure he was even alive. He was deported from Buea to Yaoundé, where he has been kept in detention up till this moment. There are many of our compatriots who have been tortured, who have gone through total humiliation, who have suffered in the hands of tormentors, those who have occupied their country. Their arrogance so tangible that you can feel it. Their contempt for us so clear, reflective of the way they treat us, reflective of the way that they've treated our detainees, how they have named them, abused them, tormented them on a daily basis. The master-slave kind of relationship, where the master believes you're dispensable. Anytime you are low in spirit, I want you to remember why you rose up in defiance of this system in the first place. The arrogance of Yaoundé is so contemptuous that you dare for 1 second never think of blinking. As someone rightly put it, the pain we have gone through, the arrogance of Cameroon will make the relationship of North Korea and South Korea look like a perfect relationship. If Cameroon does not pack and leave sooner than later, the relationship between Ambazonia and Cameroon will be worse than that between North Korea and South Korea. We have gone through so much agony in our own country, tormented by a system that invaded our country more than 58 years ago, dismantled our political system, dismantled our economic system, betrayed the sacred trust that existed between the governed and the government, instituted an autocratic system where power was arbitrary, the rule of law was replaced by executive fiat, where appointees became lords and warlords in our neighborhood. This is why you have to remember all the time, don't focus on the abstract called independence. Focus on the pain, on the agony. Imagine for 1 second that you have to lose and have to subject yourself again under Cameroon. Imagine for 1 second that you look back how far we have come and look at the bodies littered along the way, those that have died, villages that have been burnt, school years sacrificed, lives cut short, girls raped, boys tortured, leaders detained incommunicado, resources exploited to build a large army to torment you. I want you to remember all of these agony. That is the fuel you need not to blink. My fellow Ambazonians, our war of independence is good. I come from a school of thought that believe in an inner passion that's reflected in positivism, a positive attitude, as I call it, stubborn optimism, born from a fundamental belief that the strategy put in place through careful analysis of a domestic and international system and understanding of the nature of the occupier, and that within 3 years has been able to undermine a system that has existed for more than 130 years. It's an uncontestable strategy. It's a winning strategy. It's a strategy that each time you think about it, let a flicker of a smile be plastered on your face, because you know you are a free people. And you know you have a vanguard of the revolution in me that will not blink, will not betray, will not smile at an opponent that has given us nothing but pain. Thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your sacrifices, and I know the future is bright. I would like to talk about a couple of themes. I know you want to know, where are we in this revolution? Where are we in our war of independence? I know you have a lot of lingering questions. I'm going to use my presentation of today to answer all of your questions and to promise you, we have just completed the Freedom Manifesto, the foundation for post-independence political, economic, social directives. It will be made available to you so you start understanding the kind of beautiful system that you will have once we kick the last enemy forces from our homeland. As I said, our revolution is good. My people, we started long time ago to fight against Cameroon. We were fighting against a system that believes simply in the use of force. It believed strongly and rightly that it had the international system to back it, because we were isolated. Breaking through the international system was difficult because we were bankrupt. It never for 1 second foresaw the emergence of the social media era, where we will be connected, exposed, and we will have, through the click of a button, expose its own brutality in our homeland. Cameroon believes so much in itself. And I want to tell you, the principal strategy that Cameroon has used to defeat any domestic opposition, that same principal strategy has been used to silence the international system. And if you have been vigilant, you must have observed it through this war of independence. That strategy is silence. Mr. Biya has used the strategy of silence and time to break down every domestic opposition. He used it against the Cameroon Anglophone movement. He used it even against the students of the University of Yaoundé who were clamoring for pluralism in universities. He used it effectively to undermine the strategy of civil disobedience and ghost towns that was employed by the Social Democratic Front. Mr. Biya believes strongly that time is on its side, and that if he remains focused, you are going to surrender. Because after all, the Buba Bello surrendered. The John Frundis blinked first. All the others before us blinked first. It also believed in another strategy, the use of force. Now, every country in the world has a right to deploy a certain level of minimum force proportionate to the threat it is going to deal with. Every country, because like every state Cameroon had before, the monopoly in the use of force. It could deploy it anyhow. So Mr. Biya has used the strategy of silence and patience on his part and the deployment of disproportionate force to frighten and threaten opponents, to have been able to hang on to power for more than 50 years. Do not forget, before Biya became president, he held the position of prime minister. This gentleman has been in power for so long that he even seems to forget how long he has been in power. And all through the period after 1989, when there was a clamoring for multipartyism across Africa, when the Iron Curtain fell, when the Berlin Wall came down and there was the chanting for pluralism, multi-party democracy, from Togo, Congo, Brazzaville, Congo, Kinshasa, Gabon and others, Cameroon under Mr. Biya remained the only country that never blinked in the face of massive opposition, in the face of the threat of isolation from the international system. So our strategy took into consideration the attitude of Mr. Biya. And I'm explaining this so you know how far we have come, where we are and where we are headed to, and why I have argued that the armed resistance against Cameroon is not only legitimate, legal, but it is the only strategy that is going to undermine Biya's deployment of military force and his attitude of silence. Once we understood all of these things, we put in place a strategy that will undermine Cameroon's political legitimacy in our country. We didn't simply ask people to pick up arms. We provided political training from Dadi to camps within different parts of Manu, to camps within Mezam. We built political training institutions right up to Boya, building the ideological foundation upon which our resistance was going to rest, so that those fighting in isolation within their own blocks will understand why they fight. They will understand how their actions in Melim, how their actions in Kwakwa, isolated from that in Boya, will culminate somehow to achieving the aspect of delegitimizing Cameroon, increasing the cost of the occupation, making Ambazonia ungovernable, and granting Ambazonia recognition as a member of the international system. We provided this foundation to our soldiers. We taught them to learn how to identify the enemy. We gave them the skills to be able to revise their own strategy in the face of Cameroon readjusting to our own methods. That is how men and women from families that had no military background, from the neighborhoods, they've never gone to any military schools. There are no officers. They have never been trained in guerrilla warfare. Were able to master the act of warfare in a very short period of time, using the block by block strategy that gave them a sense of ownership of their resistance, knowledge of their own block, and how you can link different blocks as part of the puzzle to create an image that was understandable enough for all the soldiers to be able to resist for 2 years. They humiliated Cameroon. And the greatest achievement, apart from making Ambazonia ungovernable, apart from increasing the cost of the occupation and making Cameroon sometimes being unable to pay its civil servants, creating political turmoil within Cameroon the same way the Eritrean resistance did with Ethiopia, we were able to move our struggle from the realm of domestic adjudication where Cameroon had authority to an international system where we had a flicker of a chance to make our case, back our case, convince others to preach the gospel of a free Ambazonia. That was the greatest achievement that we achieved. And so for all those doubters, for all those who still think and doubt if Ambazonia would actually be recognized, I want you to know we didn't come here by accident. We didn't get here by accident. We got here by putting in place a strategy that has worked, that has been able to make commanders to celebrate October 1 with the population sang the Hail, Hail, Hail Ambazonia, hung their flag, be proud of being Ambazonian. It wasn't decreed. It wasn't a presidential ordinance. It wasn't legislated. It was won with our blood. And we haven't rolled it back. And we can't roll it back simply by the way we feel, how we think, how we perceive things. When I say don't blink, this is what I mean. I want you to look at me in my eyes and to say to yourself, I am a passionate believer in the freedom of Ambazonia, and I'll lay my life to make sure it is achieved. And nothing temporal will persuade me otherwise. That is don't blink attitude. The don't blink attitude is also getting up in the morning and realizing you have to make investment continuously. Remember what I said from the beginning. Be the primary investor in your own liberation so that you become the master of your own destiny. Your investment is not going to be conditioned on how you feel, because someone betrayed you or someone put out an audio to undermine you. Remember, a regime of over 20 million with a budget of billions, news outlets that it can construct narratives, was not able to stop you. A regime backed by the international system had the power of diplomacy over us. Thousands of military men that believe in themselves and believe in you as a slave was not able to stop us. So I don't see how you get up like a teenager and you're feeling bad because some nyamfukas decide to betray themselves. You are better than this. I spend time trying to motivate you. I spend time trying to give you hope. You should be strong. You should believe in Ambazonia. You should believe in what you have achieved. Through pain, through hard work. The Americans didn't speak for us because they love us. The UN Security Council didn't sit there and talk about us because they believe in us. The British parliamentarians aren't talking about us because they think Ambazonia is a lofty ideal. They do it because you make them to do it with your blood, your pain and agony and sacrifice. And most importantly, your courage. Only people with courage, defiant courage against tyranny and oppression of an alien system imposed in their own homeland, gain the respect and admiration of their own peers across the globe. You did it. And take pride in that. And soldier on like soldiers of the Ambazonian War of Independence. I don't want to get up every morning and see you feeling bad, feeling weak because somebody sent out an audio that demotivated you. How cheap can you be? How cheap that you don't believe in the soldiers fighting in the trenches on a daily basis. That General Hassan battling on the streets of Kumbo doesn't motivate you. You allow some junk sitting out here in the diaspora to make you blink. You are more powerful than you think. Tested, proven, empirical evidence to show for. Remain defiant, my people. You are warriors of a generation that has rewritten the history of your country. Don't let any Tom, Dick or Harry take that away from you. Because we're still on our feet. Our shadows and our spirit will fight them to the gates of hell. So we've made progress. We've made progress, a lot of progress. We have been able to undermine Cameroon's ability in our homeland. If explanation doesn't capture that progress, what do you think of October 1, 2019? What do you think of 22nd of September 2017? What do you think of the millions of people who rose up in defiance on the 1st of October 2017? Ambazonian consciousness is so high that no country, no groups of country, armed even with tanks, millions of tanks, will be able to take away our independence. That's how far we've come. We have made progress because for the first time in our miserable existence under this tyranny of a neighbor, they became confused. And let me chart the path. Cameroon is the only country that has been running itself with multiple constitutions that were existing legally all at the same time. 1972 Constitution revised in 1996, revised in 2008, and revised again in 2019. But let me tell you what you have done for you to understand that your actions has even conscientized Cameroonians to begin to question the nature of their presence in our own homeland. And that's why you will be presenting Cameroon with a special status when we have booted them out of our homeland. Be reminded that on the 1st of September 1961, being unable, and this is, you should understand this because this is critical. I will link this up with the Swiss discussion for you to start understanding why I have been taking this, the kinds of positions that I've been taking. And people felt from the beginning that it was maybe grandstanding or it must be my way. No, my people, I have no way. The only way is the Ambazonian way. It's not my way. None of us has a way. We are mere mortals. Our time on earth is limited. And so you want to leave a legacy that is reflective in the collective conscience of the Ambazonian people than your own mindset alone. So each time I make a decision, I sample the collective feeling of our people. I use my own intellect, gotten through experience and scholarship, to make a decision that I believe is good for our revolution. And I can assure you, I've gotten it right most of the time, if not all of the time. Now, let's look at it this way. 1st of September 1961, Cameroon failed with the others, France, United Kingdom, United Nations, to convene a post-plebiscite conference. And lest you forget, a plebiscite is not binding. It's informative. It's not binding. That's why you found when the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union, it needed an act of parliament to be binding on the United Kingdom. So because we expressed our opinion to federate with Cameroon on the 11th of February 1961, didn't make it binding. If the spirit of the UN resolution that was passed in April 1961 was followed to the letter, it would have resulted in an act of parliament only from the Ambazonian parliament to make the result of the plebiscite binding on us. They failed. So by the de facto position, we were still independent. But let me explain what I'm trying to explain on the way Cameroon functions. And if you don't understand that way, you're going to fall into their trap and make a ridicule of yourself as unprepared in the face of the international system. Cameroon turned its own constitution. Cameroon turned its own constitution into La Constitution Fédérale. Imposed it on us. Dismantle our own political system. Gradually took over our country. It made its constitution by itself. Imposed it on us. 11 years later, it revised that constitution from the Federal Republic of Cameroon to the United Republic of Cameroon. It did it again by itself. 1984, by Decree 02/84, in February, Mr. Biya renamed the country La République du Cameroun, undermining the premise of Article 47 of the federal constitution it imposed on us, which had clearly stated that no party in its existence will revert to its name prior to a federation. 1996, it revised that same constitution, where Mr. Biya had absolute power to legislate by decree, by presidential ordinances. It appointed judges. It was the only one that could refer bills to parliament. Mr. Biya had so much executive power that that power translated into administrative power of detention, violating the basic principles of habeas corpus. In 2008, the same regime all alone revised that same constitution, extended Mr. Biya's mandate to life in the presidency. But do not forget, at the same time, that 1972 constitution, there were provisions, like in the 1996 constitution, that were still operational in 2008. So when such a system calls for a so-called national dialogue, a system with this track record, you find our own people forget all of these things that I have highlighted. Forgot simply that while we gave our blood on the street for the University of Buea, all the administrators were members of the Politburo of the CPDM. While we fought for the GCE board, they took it over again. Why John Frundi was fighting to get mayors and over councils, Mr. Biya was appointing government delegates. Excuse me. So with this track record, this is not a regime that anyone inside our country should believe in, let alone the international system. And that's why I'm so shocked and surprised that the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, the Secretary General of the Francophonie, and others who know very well the human rights record of Cameroon, that many international reputable research organizations have classified this as a very autocratic system, systematic violation of human rights reported time and again by Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and even the US State Department. Total contempt of the Charter of the Commonwealth, which talks about good governance, rule of law, fair trial, respect for human rights and democracy. We still believe that such an oligarchic system that has been in power for more than half a century will be able to resolve an intractable conflict that has cost the lives of 13,000 of our people. If you think you are fighting for independence, I want you to know that you are fighting against these vices. Because if you fail in your bid to be free, this is exactly what Endele warned you against, that you're going to live under. And you must have transferred to the next generation a worse system than you inherited. That is why you must not blink. My fellow Ambazonians, they've decided on their own, negating the reality of the conflict, negating everything that is real in the real world, to think they can grant the first democracy in the continent of Africa, the first pluralistic, tolerant, compromising system that showed the world that you could respect even the 1951 Geneva Conventions on the Protection of Refugees and its 1967 Bellagio Protocol, granting Cameroonians protective status, refugee status within Ambazonia, while they were murdering the Bamilekes. That this decadent autocratic political system might in abysmal economic approaches could grant the great state of Ambazonia a special status. Nyamfukas. Nyamfukas. My people, let me move to the next topic. Our great Benji, Nelson and others, Seseko, Dekontasang and others were kidnapped from Nigeria and deported to Cameroon. The world was silent. The world was silent. Now, the principle of non-refoulement is a principle under international law that says you cannot repatriate anyone to a country where they might be tortured, where you know torture is practiced. These people were deported from Nigeria. We have not seen the shock and awe from the United Nations. We haven't seen the shock and awe from the international system. They were detained incommunicado. I mean, without access to family, to lawyers, to anyone. No one said a word. Cameroon burnt down more than 300 of our villages, murdered more than 13,000 of our people, kidnapped tens of thousands and deported them to Cameroon and detained them incommunicado, passed them through kangaroo court in the pitch of darkness, sentenced them to life in jail. Cameroon has continued its murderous acts in our cities, burning down homes, using schools as military bases, committing crimes against humanity, perpetrating the act of genocide. More than 6 million Ambazonians are affected by the actions of brutality by Cameroon. More than 2 million Ambazonians need help, support, because they've been displaced from their homes. They've lost possibilities of livelihood. Hundreds of thousands are in the bushes as IDPs. Hundreds of thousands are living with families, strangers, neighbors, the hospitality of a great people. Cameroon is bankrupt. It's unable to pay its own military. It's unable to pay civil servants. People have studied to the level of PhD. They are unable to have a job. Would you believe this is the same country that has the capacity to move over to Nigeria and repatriate in good faith those whose villages it had burnt, parents it had killed, mothers it had raped, and were forced to escape their own country? Lest you forget, the United Nations humanitarian agencies are operating within Ambazonia. Before they came there, Cameroon requested them. Cameroon has requested and asked for money from the international system to be able to support Ambazonian IDPs. The same country that goes around begging for money, asking international humanitarian organizations to come and support people it has displaced, murdered families, it has raped, is the same country that you believe has the capability and capacity to move into a foreign country and move Ambazonians back to its own capital? Young Fukas, you can't fool us. Multiculturalism Commission, bilingualism Commission, spatial status, there is no Anglophone problem, has not fooled us. You have used Atanganji, Musonges, the Achidi Achus. You have used the Ekemas. You have used proxy officers for the past 60 years to claim legitimacy over Ambazonia. It has not worked. You have tried to bribe active soldiers. It has not worked. Every Ambazonian who has picked up arms against Cameroon with the conviction to free the homeland, to defend their bloc, our humanity, is not cheap. Every Ambazonian fighting in the trenches, knowing the pain that Cameroon has imposed on us, the agony that has visited our homeland, is not cheap. Every Ambazonian who has seen the decapitation of Samsoya, the murder of Mami Api, who has seen the killing of Julius, the kidnapping of the Sesekos, the treatment given to our comrades in jail, you cannot bribe them. All those who entered our war of independence as opportunists, thinking it was a place to make a name, it was a place to make a living, they are gullible. I can assure every Ambazonian, we will get these men. We will get this man. And I want you all to become soldiers of our war of independence. Anyone who connives, plot, and scheme with the regime committing genocide in our country to extend its legitimacy, its action of brutality, wherever you do that, that place will be seen as an area of war. We will target you there. Whether you are in Europe, you are in Mars, we will target you there. This is war. This is war. You kidnap our leaders from Nigeria, we will target your own leaders in Nigeria. You attack our integrity anywhere, planning from anywhere, we will hit you in the same place. Any country that harbors you partakes by commission or omission in the acts of genocide in our country. Ambazonia is not cheap. We will not blink until the last soldier of Cameroon is removed from our homeland. Freedom restored, dignity restored. Anyone who tries to undermine Ambazonia's expressed desire to be free from tyranny and oppression knows that you are fighting against a brick wall that you will not be able to go through, because this generation has decided that tyranny must come to an end now. No negotiation, no blinking, no ago, no tomorrow, it will be now. And I want each and every one of you to be prepared. Wherever you are, be a soldier of the revolution. Take the battle to the enemy, wherever they are. My fellow people, the crime of genocide is the most heinous crime, because there is some calculation, there is an intent to eliminate you partially or fully for the purpose of controlling your territory, controlling your resources. It is not a part-time job. Resistance is not a part-time job. It is a full-time job. It is not going to be conditioned on how you feel, whether you are poor or you are rich. The moment you commit to a liberation strategy, you put people's lives at risk. And I know you are brave. You have shown it in your actions in the diaspora. You have shown it in your actions in the homeland. And I can assure you, your actions have translated into progress in our war of independence. And that's why there is confusion in the camp of the enemy, moving from one constitutional amendments to the other, confusing itself. Those are the signs of the end days. But you must be realistic. There will be bad days for us. We will lose men, like we lost General Ivo, like we lost Obi. Bad things will happen, like the arrest of Capo. You must adjust yourself to those realities. Massacres have taken place. Entire villages have been burnt. Many more may be burnt. You might get up tomorrow. I am not there. You might get up tomorrow. A general on the ground is not there. You must build your mind to factor in these realities. You must know the greatest thing you can give to those who've given their life is a free homeland. Because that's the objective for which they inserted themselves in the first place in our war of independence. Their blood was spilled because an enemy, a tyranny, an alien neighbor wanted to deny them the opportunity to live in a free country. So it's good to feel sad, but get yourself up, fold your sleeves, and pick up the fight again until it's over. There is no rest. My fellow countrymen and women, the coming months will be difficult. I want to remind you, they will be difficult. You have seen what has happened with the so-called Swiss talks. Every conflict I know, even the ones that end with outright victory, like World War II, like the Rwandan struggle under President Kagame, or even the Democratic Republic of Congo, when Kabila came to power, that was outright victory. Even conflicts that end with outright victories, there will be some form of negotiated settlement to talk about refugees, to talk about assets, to talk about liabilities, talk about accountabilities, post-conflict justice system to reconcile broken families, truth and reconciliation commissions to be able to heal a battered community. So somehow, we will be able to meet Cameroon across the table to talk about some aspects. But we have to get it right. And that's what we argued when it came to the Swiss discussion. We know that the hurried nature of that discussion was designed to slow down our momentum, to divert our attention, to take off our focus, and to get us locked in an interface of contemplation and stagnation. That was the purpose of that hurriedly stitched up Swiss talks that violated every basic standard on how international negotiations are brought to bear, how they are conducted, and how they function. And we know definitely that we knew that Cameroon had not committed to it. And that the aspect of exploring avenues of bringing us to talk with Cameroon had not followed standard procedure. Because at the time when they were doing all of these things, Cameroon was continuously engaging in acts of brutality, burning villages and displacing hundreds of thousands of our people. At the time when they were talking about international negotiation, Cameroon was running a parallel process where it wanted to use to legitimize itself. Because as I have explained before, the international system only steps in when a country is incapable or unwilling to resolve an issue which is considered to have reached the level of a threat to international peace and security. And Cameroon has shown all of those qualities. Incapable, because it was defeated; unwilling, because it was arrogant. And once the international system stepped in, Cameroon became confused and started putting together hurried processes at the domestic level. And let me tell you something. This is the way the international system works. Anytime a country says, I can try, they give that country a chance. Because under international law, the country is the primary actor that deals with issues that are considered domestic. And even though we had made it clear that Cameroon's occupation of Ambazonia is an international crisis and not a domestic one, the international system was acting like an ostrich. That's why they were referring to us as Northwest, Southwest, confused, separatists, secessionists. They didn't have a qualification for us because the right qualifications had international implications. They didn't want to go down that road. Once they gave us the right qualification, it would have been very difficult to allow Cameroon to attempt a domestic solution. So once Cameroon realized it had lost all the powers to decide the fate of Ambazonia, it put it together these domestic processes that the international system had to adjust its own international process to. And you started hearing noises, we give it a chance, maybe you can walk, adjust it, talk to them. And that is how they have allowed Mr. Biya for the past 38 years to escape international scrutiny, whether in organizing elections that are not free and fair, corruption, extrajudicial execution, systematic torture, as reported by Sir Nigel Rodley in his 1999 report. Cameroon has never really been held accountable. And Cameroon has understood well the international system and played its card well until it met this generation, the don't blink generation. A generation that understands the mechanics of the international system, a generation that understands that having been failed many times by the same countries that voted for our independence, renege on their own decision and their own vote, we have to do it by ourselves. And so we see how the Swiss process unraveled, and we started getting all sort of rumors around. I don't want to deal in rumors. I want to deal on facts that are based on empirical evidence. And so what I can tell you is our decision not to go to Geneva was right. Our decision not to engage formally in that process was right. Why? Each time you engage in a flawed process, you legitimize the process, and it's very difficult to retreat. The Decontassant and the consortium experience this. It is very difficult to retreat once you've immersed yourself in a flawed process where the intent to bring you in was to legitimize it. John Frundi's getting into parliament is another example. Once John Frundi entered parliament, took over parliamentary seats, took over municipal council, it became immersed in the system to legitimize it. A study has been done on how autocratic system like the Biya regime survives. They survive by recruiting the opposition to legitimize their policies of tyranny. That is exactly what the Swiss system was also designed to achieve. Once we refused, because without being arrogant, the Amazonian Governing Council is the most powerful movement in the Amazonian War of Independence. There is no doubt about that. You can't negotiate without us. We cannot also negotiate without bringing the others together. But we are the most powerful. And when we say no, no process goes forward. And that is why you found some people trying to readjust a couple of stuff. We are the vanguard of this revolution. We have no interest in governance at this particular stage. We believe strongly in our ability to liberate the Amazonian people, grant them the powers to decide on the formation of a government based on their consent. And we know exactly how we define our policies based on our experience and knowledge of the system. And so believe in us when we say it's not about time. Believe in us when we also told you, based on what we are seeing, deployment of helicopter gunships in Boya, murdering people, mothers carrying olive branches being shot and taunted, that getting arms was the only way to respond to that level of barbarism. Now, what is the way forward in terms of international negotiation? Cameroon has to commit. In the last days, Mr. Biya has restated his position on continuing the war. That is not a country that wants peace. That's not a country that wants a negotiated settlement. He has made it clear that he's going to use the military. And that's why I am also responding to him by telling you, the Amazonian people, please believe in the forces. Let me tell you something. If you arm the men to the teeth, you will not fly to Geneva. Geneva will fly to Boya. International diplomacy is not for the weak. It's not for those who experiment. It's not for those who conjure, who are uncertain. It's not for those who think it can give you a sense of legitimacy. It's for the defiant, those who show tact, knowledge, depth of knowledge in what they are doing. International diplomacy in the resolution of conflict is for the powerful. It's not for the weak. We do not ask our people to defend themselves. We do not ask you to arm the people because we are warmongering. It's to protect the lives of the Amazonian people against a tyranny that believes that it can wipe us using the crime of genocide. To protect our dignity so we can gain respect as people who can stand up against those who rob them of sleep and dignity. It's against a system that has given you nothing else than pain and suffering. It is also to show the international system that we can't rely on you. You who betrayed us. You who stood by the regime by providing economic support. You who has been signing oil deals, exploiting our resources to push forward an agenda of occupation of our homeland. We can't rely on the same systems that believe in the status quo. Peace and security at our expense for international transactions. Arming our people is to also show that we are ready to sacrifice for what is ours. No one is going to sacrifice for you. By showing that desire, that determination, you gain the respect and admiration from others. It's not by crying, it's not by mourning, it's not by deputating, sending letters of appeal. It's by flexing your muscles and being able to challenge the same system that has taken over your own right of existence. That's why we ask you to arm the people. I know most of you think there are a lot of things happening that leaders are quarreling, there is no unity and stuff. No, that's wrong. As I responded to my learned brother the other day, those who prescribe unity as the solution to your independence were wrong. Totally wrong. Strategy is the solution to independence. Let me tell you, if somebody comes in tomorrow and gives you $5 million US, and say, go get guns. What do you need Ayaba for? Do you need the opinion of Bohebert? You don't. If you have the strategy, you go forward. The only time unity is quintessential is prior to victory. Because post-independence reconstruction stability depends on your ability to move together as a people. Once you achieve victory as a people, there is a high sense of tolerance from the people to a sitting government. Because it will not simply be sunshine immediately after independence. There will be some difficult periods of transition. And a happy people, a satisfied people who've gotten victory as a people will understand, tolerate, and support and sacrifice. Unity is good, but you should not conflate unity for uniformity. Diversity is beautiful too. People fighting in their own lane like different arms of government, the legislature, the judiciary, the press, and the executive, working without confrontation, will still achieve the same result as one body. So when we replace strategy with unity, conflated collaboration with conformity, we lost our track. We made many people's spirit to become dampened because the only thing they saw when we had setback was if we were united. No. If the guys had the gun, what will stop the Alabukam Brigade from overrunning Bamenda in 20 days if you give them 500 AK? Because some Ayaba or some Sako are not united? It's not going to happen. So you have to understand how revolutions work. You have to understand how victory is achieved. And the moment you have that understanding, setbacks will come. But your ability to adjust when there are setbacks is what makes losers and winners. Losers are those who sit in times of setbacks and they are mourning, complaining, blaming. Winners are those who know how to circumvent setbacks, turn tragedies into victories, omissions into commissions, every setback into an investment for progress. And that's why I want to talk about FACO. My people, I know I've been talking for too long, but permit me talk. This is the new year, and so let me cover a lot of ground. Now, first let me thank my brother, Bosco. They call him Baramak. He says he's the godfather of the revolution. You can't take it away from him. But thank you for supporting the project to arm FACO, and Barrister Tumasang, and even Mr. Eric Tato. You have others, my staff and wonderful people. The great support we've received from across the board. Now let me assure the people of FACO this. I live my life in FACO. Let me tell you something. Our main compound is in FACO. It's in FACO. When my father left World War II, he settled in FACO. That's how we grew up. My brothers went to boys' school, girls' school. I went to RCM Newtown. I lived there. My father worked at the hospital as a night watch man at the hospital, the General Hospital of Victoria. In 1996, when we had formed the SCYL, my base was Victoria. I had to mobilize Victoria to defend Victoria. I had to identify every military base of Cameroon within Victoria for our purposes of self-defense. I remember vividly at Down Beach, I worked with 5 Ambazonian soldiers One of them is of late. May his soul rest in peace. I recruited them. That was 1996. They ferried me in a military truck. I entered that military truck as though I was going to do farming in Manawa Bay. But I was going to find out how Manawa Bay is. And I entered Manawa Bay with two of us. Looked at it well. Be able to look at it to secure it. I moved from there, going down to Ngeme. I looked at Monkey Hill, the anti-aircraft battery around Sokolo, not Sokolo. As you are entering Ngeme, from the top, the hill that you drive down into Ngeme, on the left side going in, you have the anti-aircraft battery. I went in there. There were 3 of them. So when I talk about FACO, I talk about FACO because of my love and passion for FACO. Because we raise brave soldiers in FACO. It's because I believe in the people of FACO. You know, I come from Mancon. Let me explain a couple of things. I come from Mancon. Mancon is the replica of FACO. They call the Bakwarians. When they talk about the Bakwarians, and you talk about Mancon, Mancon people are the opposite of the Bakwarians in the northern states because they are cosmopolitan. And that's why I've always defended, because there are many people from the northern states that settled within FACO and in other parts of the southern states. I've helped develop it. And the hospitality of the people of the southern state has been extremely wonderful. If you consider the number of hundreds of thousands of people from different parts that set up home there. And that's why I've always defended them. When you live as a cosmopolitan, that's why when they say, when you hear statement like Bakwere, people are lazy, I say that's stupid, and I'll explain why. When you live from the northern states and you come down and you pick up a job in CDC, it's easy for you to do that job. And when the person who lives in that community refuses to do that job, you might think that they are lazy. But I want you to look at it this way. When you leave Ambazonia and come into Europe, it's easy for you to do any kind of job because that's not your space. And you turn around also and think that maybe the Europeans are lazy, the Americans are lazy. No. It's because it's easy for you, who has left your own homeland, to pick up any kind of job anywhere and do it, to secure the welfare of your own people, than the people living in that place. That's why we live down there and you have Chadians coming down and repairing shoes, walking around, Nigerians doing all sort of jobs that we could not do. It's a natural phenomenon that when you move to a distant place, you feel like you don't have so much pride to protect. And I think that my desire to arm FACO stems from my love for FACO and the strategic importance of FACO in our war of independence. We controlled FACO. We launched operations within our capital. We could move from our capital down right up to Mumbai 4. We could control the My 17 axis. We ran the axis from My 17 right up to Munya, going to Ekona, Muyoka, right up to Meme. Because we had secured that axis using the core peripheral strategy. Disruption, forward intel, and impeding. FACO is weakened. It's a reality, and I am ready to have a discussion with others. I know my staff will be talking to others operating there. I want us to work together there. Our capital state is critical for all of us, and we should not see it as a place of conflict amongst us. We should see it as a place to test our ability to collaborate, to undermine the regime's presence for the interest of the Amazonian people. And so I will be reaching out to have a discussion with all those who are operating there so that we can test our ability to collaborate as elections are coming up in February. Please, if you are listening to me, stop clicking like, stop clicking love. I've asked my staffs, my comrades, to put up the donation link for FACO under this message. Please stop for a while. Go on that link, put $5. Each of you, 10, 5, 20. Let me tell you what I see. We've lost a lot of brave commanders along that axis. Cameroon has been working extremely very hard to undermine our presence within that axis, to use it for two purposes. Don't forget, even as we strive for independence, you still have very gullible Ambazonians, weak Ambazonians, who doubt, is it going to happen? What La République is trying to do is to use examples of our defeat in certain areas to show the people within that area that we can be defeated, and to show people within other areas that are still under our control that we can be defeated. It has a ripple effect, a very dangerous effect, a very dangerous psychological impact on the psyche of our resistance. And so sometimes when I turn my focus on a particular area, it is not because our strategy has changed. We will gain recognition even without static control of any part of our territory if we successfully delegitimize, undermine Cameroon's ability to control and exercise the powers of governance. For them, FACO is strategic. Use FACO as an example. They have tried that with Manyu. They are pushing hard. We are countering. In the past days, we have put materials in Manyu. I wouldn't go further. But the strategy for us is not because we want to absolutely control the state, we want to absolutely control those areas. It is to be able to undermine Cameroon's ability to exercise political governance and exploit resources. There is a strategy in place. I call it core peripheral. It's a tactics within the Python strategy. Please, arms is the only answer to the intransigence of Yaoundé. Arms is the response to the nonchalant attitude of the international system. Click on that donate button and put materials into FACO. In less than 7 weeks, Cameroon has called for elections within the mighty state of Ambazonia, the land of the Kuva-Lekenyes, of the brave warriors gone and alive. A system that will provide them with economic assistance has the audacity to call for elections in our country. It's a test of nerves. We are the don't blink generation. We have to make sure there is no single vote cast. We have to delegitimize the system once more and write their obituary in the last chapters of our own history. From the 7th of February until the 12th, those are the dates that all the defense groups have agreed on. All the leaders have been consulted. The 7th to the 12th, the entire Ambazonia will be in lockdown. Our defense forces will be out. Our population should block the entire country. Wherever you are, stones, trees, whatever you can do. I call on all the communities in the diaspora to support your various communities at home to make sure at this time the entire country is blocked. As I said the other day, all humanitarian activities except emergency services dealing with the wounded, Red Cross vans, all others will stop for that period. All foreign embassies in Ambazonia closed down. All foreign nationals, you will be safe, stay indoors. Respect the laws of the land. We must provide enough materials for FACO and Manyo to a certain extent to give us a 100% victory. What will this victory mean? I know the international system has said, and we know that from different sources, let us wait and see how the elections go, and we'll know our next moves. Don't fool yourself. Don't fool yourself. This cat and mouse game has to come to an end. The international system has to be bold. Overthrow Mr. Biya, replace him with someone who understands the gravity of the crisis and who is able to negotiate Cameroon's exit from Amazonia. All this hanky-panky, the impact on trade, on international peace and security, and domestic policies of different countries based on the movement of people across borders will hit everyone, the same way the Syrian crisis hit the shores of Europe. Resolving the Ambazonian crisis, granting Ambazonia recognition as an independent state, helping it set up a transitional authority that can provide security, get schools to return, is critical for stability in the Gulf of Guinea and for international peace and security. So my people, the implications of our victory in February are high. It will show once more that Ambazonia has risen to fall no more. Ambazonians are in charge. That the overwhelming population of Ambazonia have rejected Cameroon. It will force the hand of the international system to change course and to become more engaged in a way that will resolve the crisis, ending with independence for our country. The world should know, as I said last time, if the Magna Carta was good for the Brits, it is also good. Independence is also good for Amazonia. If people rose up and stormed the Bastille and instituted the Declaration of the Right of Man, if that was good for the French, independence and all its attributes is good for the Amazonians. That the first country in the continent of Africa that upheld the virtues and values of democracy, tolerance, transparency, accountability, to be allowed to be annexed by one of the most corrupt, decadent, misguided, autocratic political system in the continent, it's not an affront only to the Amazonian people. It's an affront to the very values, the virtues for which millions of people have laid their lives to institute. The right to be free, to have a democratic pluralism based on the virtues of tolerance and compromise, to have a government for the people, by the people, that exploit resources for the interests of the people. That is why Ambazonians took to the streets. That is why they've risen up in arms to defend. You must see us as a partner in the protection of these ideals. You must see us as a partner for peace, a partner for stability, a partner for justice, the basis for the resolution of the Amazonian conflict must be based on truth and justice. Any artificial solution will fail the same way it failed in 1961, failed in 1972, failed all over the years of political liberalism. Any solution that does not factor the truth and justice for the Amazonian people, that translates into independence, into freedom, is cosmetic, will be rejected, will be resisted. We shed our blood for a free homeland, to remember the heroism of all those who died before us, to preserve the memories of children born, yet unborn, shattered, lives shattered, scattered across the world, struggling on a daily basis to provide for their families, locked down under anarchy of a system that has provided us nothing but hate and contempt. For the millions of us living out here in exile, our lives are intertwined with the lives of those who can't go to school, those who strive on a daily basis to stay alive, to stay afloat, battling with soldiers of the enemy, insisting on instituting an alien rule over them. For all those who on a daily basis carry their guns to defend freedom, they are doing so because they know that millions before them across the globe, their great-granddads were exported across shores to defend freedom when it was threatened in Europe, to defend it when it was threatened in Japan, when warriors stormed beaches, regiments landed behind enemy lines. They risked their life for something so real and tangible, so rewarding. That is an ideal that our generation is prepared to lay our lives to achieve. Let the world know Amazonia as a state has to be recognized. Let Cameroon know that this generation will turn back Cameroon into the Stone Ages if it does not pack and leave. And to all of you locked up in the jails of Cameroon, you are heroes. You should know every day you get up. For us out here, we will fight everywhere to make sure you are not only free, but that you return to a homeland which is free. All the families who have lost loved ones, their memories will forever be engraved in the psyche of the Amazonian history. To all the soldiers, be reminded, your sacrifices will not go in vain, and that we will pass legislation that will grant every Amazonian soldier who fights free education, free professional training, free health care for as long as they live. And for all those who have died, their children, their families will receive the benefit of their sacrifices. For you who sacrifice for us, for our freedom, to defend it, to protect our integrity, we don't take it lightly. And that the new nation will remember you, will remember your sacrifices, celebrate your heroism, and that we must continue to battle, even in the face of seeming chaos. Be reminded, we are here today because you turn a blind eye, you close your ears to the intrigues and manipulations of a few who think they could hoodwink our cravings for a free homeland to serve themselves. We are mere mortals with our own fallibilities, with our own weaknesses. I want you to project our strength, project the goodness in us, talk about the beauty in us, the love in us, the ability for us as an untrained people to bring our forces together to defend the ideals of freedom, to fight across different European capitals, raise consciousness, arouse the consciences of Europeans and Americans across the globe, to believe in the ideals of freedom that is good for the Amazonian people. That shows the strength of the Amazonian people. It shows that we are together. That as far as the objective for which we sacrifice are concerned, we are one. Like every people, like every family, we have our differences. The goodness in us will not be determined by those differences. They will be determined by our ability to turn those differences into commonalities, to turn valleys into bridges, to be able to look at the overall good, to be able to look at the overall objective and bury some of those hatchets, rise up like one people under oppression, facing the same destiny to write their own story with their own voice and their own blood, so that the next generation will know we did it for them. We died for them. We went to jail for them. We were brave enough to withstand the manipulation of the international system. We were brave enough to see the intrigues of the international system. We were savvy enough not to blink in the face of the domestic political manipulations of a tyranny across our border. And that our freedom will be a torchbearer that will shine beyond our own shores and give Cameroonians themselves the bravery to rise and change their own destiny. This is the generation that can give Africa hope. Don't lose it. God bless you all. Good night and Happy New Year.